Okay, we're on Sheviit Perek Yud Mishnah Bet, second Mishnah in the last chapter of Sheviit. We're going to continue our discussion of Shemitah Ksafim, the cancellation of loans. The cancellation of loans that happens according to the way the Torah mandates at the end of the Shemitah cycle, any outstanding loans canceled. Okay, so the Mishnah is going to continue on this about this discussion. It says the Mishnah, Hashochet ha'para v'chilka b'Rosh Hashanah. So I'm the butcher. So where the butcher worked, it was what happened usually is we had a collective, okay, and everybody went in on the animal. Everybody took a piece of the animal. So I slaughtered the animal and I divided it on Rosh Hashanah. I gave it out on Rosh Hashanah. So the Mishnah says the following: Im hayach chodesh meubar mishamet, v'im lav eno mishamet. If it was a chodesh meubar, i.e., it was a pregnant month, it's mishamet. Then the loan, the outstanding debt, is canceled. V'im lav, and if it's not a chodesh meubar, eno mishamet. I will explain. Okay. I'll just use Hebrew calendar for an example, and this is actually September 2015 was the end. We're now in the 8th year. We're about to go into the 9th year. So Rosh Hashanah was the end. Last Rosh Hashanah that we celebrated last year was the end of the Shemitah cycle. This Rosh Hashanah, the first day of Rosh Hashanah, in modern times, last Rosh Hashanah, that was when Shemitah canceled out any official outstanding loans. Okay? But that's the way. We have 2 days of Rosh Hashanah now for a very specific reason. In the Torah, Rosh Hashanah is only 1 day. That's what it is. There's no such thing as 2 days of Rosh Hashanah. Why do we have 2 days? And in fact, why do we have 2 days even in Israel? So the reasons are very simple. Way back in the time of the Beit HaMikdash, they didn't know if Rosh Hashanah was going to be, let's say, for example, they knew the new moon was coming, but they didn't know if it was going to be Rosh Hashanah was going to be 1 day, if it was a Chodesh, normal Chodesh, or Chodesh Me'ubar, pregnant, i.e., it was 29 days, and then this is the Rosh Hashanah, this is the Rosh Chodesh, or it's 30-day month, and this is Rosh Hashanah, this is Rosh Chodesh. So therefore, what they did was the following. At some point, it became a problem. They said we have to have 2 days of Rosh Hashanah. We have to treat both days like Chag, because what happens if we don't treat the first day, if we don't treat this day as Chag, this is the 29th day of the month of, the 30th day of the month of Elul. Actually, but then it was the 29th. Let's say, in olden times, let's say this was the 29th of Elul. This is what they used to do. On the 29th of Elul, which is, they'd say either today is going to be, we're going to say today is Rosh Chodesh, and therefore this is going to be the first of Tishrei, or we're going to have Lamed, and this is going to be the first of Tishrei. Okay, so nowadays there's always 29 days in Elul. So either this is going to be the first, or we're going to have 30 days, and this is going to be the first. So, but this is before the establishment of the calendar. But it all depends on whether the Eidim come today. So what happened was the following. Let's say the Eidim would come in the afternoon of this day. So it turns out that this happened to be Rosh Hashanah. But unless they made it Chag, unless they blew the shofar, unless everybody had Musaf and apples and honey, then they would basically have missed Rosh Hashanah. So they said, okay, we have to have this day be Kodesh, out of a Chumrah. So therefore, no matter what, we're always going to have, if the Eidim come this day, then this is Rosh Hashanah. If the Eidim don't come on this day, then this day will be Rosh Hashanah. And that's the beginnings of why we have 2 days of Rosh Hashanah even today. Okay, and it also has to do with in Eretz Yisrael. They were afraid they wouldn't be able to get the word out, etc., etc. We're going to learn this later on in Seder Moed. We're not going to learn it in great detail today, but that's the point. So what the Mishnah is describing is, in the times of the Mishnah, it's possible that there was only 1 day of Rosh Hashanah, and it's possible that there was 2 days of Rosh Hashanah. So imagine the following. If there's 1 day of Rosh Hashanah, that means this day is Tishrei. If there's 2 days of Rosh Hashanah, in our understanding, that means the second day of Rosh Hashanah is Tishrei, but the day before is Elul. Everybody, I hope you understand what I'm saying. That would mean that, like, they would say, in their dimes, they would celebrate 2 days, these 2 days. But for the purpose of illustration, I'm just saying these 2 days. If it's a little confusing, you can email me. I'm sorry. Nonetheless, this is exactly what the Mishnah is saying. So basically, the example of the para is using it as an example of what happened was, it must be talking about a case where the owner immediately said, how much money you owe me is going to be considered a loan. So let's just leave it at that. So therefore, since it's a loan, we need to know, if it was a pregnant month. And what that means is, it's a pregnant month, that means this day is still Elul. It's the 30th day of Elul. So therefore, and he gave out the meat on this day. The loans took place on this day. So nightfall comes, and what's this day? Rosh Hashanah, first day of Tishrei. That's the switchover from 1 day to the other. And therefore, you already owe the butcher money on this day, and when the switchover came, that loan was canceled. That's what the Mishnah says. Imay chodesh meubar mishamet. The loans are canceled. V'im lav, but if it's not a chodesh meubar, let's go back to our calendar. It's not a chodesh meubar. That means this day is Rosh Hashanah. The day that he gave out the meat, and the loans were initiated, is already the beginning of Tishrei. Then it's eno mishamet. Mishnah continues. The Mishnah continues. So I want to say, okay. I just wanted to show you the Bartanura says why. Okay, Sheviit mishametet besofa, and this is all because Sheviit cancels loans at the end of the year. Dichtiv, as it says, miketz sheva shanim ta'aseh shmita. At the end of 7 years, you should do shmita. That we saw in the psukim. Miketz sheva shanim ta'aseh shmita. At the very end of the 7th year, and this is exactly what our Mishnah is telling us in a very interesting roundabout way. It's at the very end of the year, right before the Rosh Hashanah of the incoming year. What about other kinds of debts? Says the Mishnah, honest, if a person, lo aleinu, rapes a woman, and so he's chayav, he has to pay her 50 shket, he has to pay her father 50 kesef. Hamefateh, or he seduces her. Similarly, he has to pay, the Beit Din imposes a fine upon him. V'amotzi shemra, a person claimed that his wife was not a virgin, and he cast aspersions on the family, and according to the Torah, you have to pay. And similarly, v'chol ma'aseh Beit Din, any other similar ma'aseh Beit Din, says the Mishnah, Einan mishamtin, a psak Beit Din, that a person is obligated to pay to somebody else. Einan mishamtin. Why, the Bartanura says? Shekevan shepasku Beit Din ala mamon. Once there's a psak on the mamon, kegavoidam. It's already if it's paid. It doesn't have the din of a loan. It's as if it's paid. That's the way the Bartanura explains it. There are other explanations as well. Hamalveh al hamashkon. Fascinating. Remember we talked about in the previous Mishnah, Malveh, there was a shtar, and there was achrayut nechasim. We said that is a machloket. But here I have a malveh on a mashkon. I lent John, Frank, Leah, I lent her 100 shekel. I said, but Leah, I don't trust you. You have to give me a mashkon. Give me your cell phone as collateral. So I'm holding on to something. Or, va'amoser shtarotav lebeit din. Or I give over. Leah owes me money. And we wrote a contract. But I didn't keep the contract. I gave it over to Beit Din. I said, Beit Din, you're responsible to pay back. Einan mishamtin. There's no Shemitah. Shemitah does not cancel either a loan, which is a malveh al mashkon, or a moser shtarotav lebeit din. Or if you give your shtarot over, you give your contracts over to Beit Din. Okay? Why? A malveh al mashkon is based on a pasuk. The pasuk says, Va'asher yelecha et achicha, that which you have of your brothers, tashmeit yadecha. Pull back your hand. Prad lezeh, that it will exclude sheyesh le'achicha biyadecha, if you have something of your brothers in your hand. So a loan of that sort, Shemitah, does not cancel. What about Moser Shtarotav Lebeit Din? Dichtiv. Similarly, it's a drasha on the pasuk. Va'asher yelecha et achicha. If you have that which your brother says, Prat leMoser Shtarotav Lebeit Din. This comes to exclude a case where a person gave over his shtarot to Beit Din. Shebeit Din yesh lehem zeh achov eitzel achiv. That Beit Din is holding, the court is holding on to the loan that your neighbor owes to you. And obviously, this is going to be the introduction to the very next Mishnah of Pruzbul. Pruzbul we'll learn later, but this is the foundation of the rule of Pruzbul, that if a person is Moser Shtarotav Lebeit Din, then it's Einam Mishameh. This is a din d'oraita that Chazal established long before the establishment of Pruzbul. That someone who gave over his shtarot to Beit Din, there's no Shemitah, and therefore, Shemitah does not cancel the loans. We'll stop here. If you have any comments or questions, as always, feel free to contact me. I just got an incredibly nice email from someone in America. Very, very appreciative of your communications, very much so. And we'll dedicate the learning to the memory of my father, Rav Simcha ben Yitzchak Kalman. Have a great day, everybody.